Meanwhile, closer to home, a Westborough man recalls the time he spent at the synagogue in California. Michael Green was a rabbi there and says coming to terms with the violence on religion lately is tough. Our Chandler Walsh joins us now with more on his connection. Chandler.
Olivia, Rabbi Green says when he first heard there was a shooting at a synagogue, he was disturbed. He says he later found out it was a congregation he knows well, and he couldn't believe it.
How such a vicious attack could happen like this in a house of worship in what I would consider to be the safest part of the country.
Rabbi Michael Green has a close connection to the synagogue in Poway, California. He taught there in the late 90s before moving to Westborough.
I could have imagined exactly how it happened because I knew the synagogue well. I remember where my office was.
Green's family was close to victim Lori Gilbert Kay. Lori was shot and killed in the synagogue foyer.
It just made perfect sense to me that Lori would have been out in the foyer because she was such a welcoming person. She always made people feel comfortable.
Green says if the shooting happened any later, the synagogue's children would have all been in the area the shooter targeted.
That could have been, when you think about the carnage that could have happened.
Like Green, the Jewish Federation of Central Massachusetts is struggling to come to terms with the tragedy exactly 6 months after another attack in Pittsburgh. Stephen Schimmel says it's especially disturbing the shooting happened on the last day of Passover, right before a prayer for loved ones who passed.
This special and holy time to be disrupted by a murderer, by a terrorist, is painful.
Schimmel says the Jewish community is coming together. He says attacks like this happen far too often.
The change in the way you feel when you go into a public place has gradually moved from not having any awareness of security to being in a position now where you're conscious and aware of where the exits are.
Rabbi Green says he'll be having a solidarity service for the victims in Westborough. He says he's also considering increasing security at his synagogue. He says in these times it's just too risky not to. Live in Worcester, Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.